Well, top tech firms have long hired international students to try and help innovate, but President Trump's effort to ban foreign-born students could impact the talent pipeline for Silicon Valley, and that is causing some concerns in the district of our next guest. Joining us right now on set is Congressman Khanna of California, whose district is in the heart of the Silicon Valley. And, Ro, we always appreciate talking to you. Thank you for coming in today.
Always a pleasure.
This is an issue you want to talk about. What's the impact? What are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, first, let's talk about the economics. I know you've had Secretary Howard Lutnick on. He always loves talking about lowering the trade deficits. Here are the facts. International students contribute $44 billion to the American economy. It's one of our biggest exports of anything. If you want to lower the trade deficit,
just in terms of tuition, travel, staying.
life expenses, universities employ about 1.5 million people. You go talk to Stanford, you talk to other state colleges. Many of them rely on international students to be able to have the employment they do. They help but defray the costs, so American students don't have to pay as much. And then the reality is that you have people like Elon Musk who were foreign students. I mean, they have been embedded in Silicon Valley and the companies that have been created.
Wait a minute. Now you like him for a second again?
I've known Elon 15 years.
No,
I've known him 15 years. I've tried, you know.
You're a Democrat. You can't say good things about him right now.
Look, I've always praised Tesla. I've praised SpaceX. I've praised his innovation. And you see now him having certain concerns. He's criticized the repeal of the tax credits on clean tech. I guarantee if you have him on, he would criticize banning foreign students.
I don't think anyone really wants to do that. But then, you know, Boulder yesterday, I'm at a loss.
Well, it's horrible anti-Semitic terrorism, needs to be unequivocally
it hasn't been.
We debate this all the time.
Yeah,
what do you think the answer is? We were talking actually about what happened at MIT just during the graduation ceremony on Friday.
You wanted me to say that I love my alma mater. I did not say that to you. I think they deserve it too.
Well, and that's the question. And the question is, what is the right answer in a world where you want to have both free speech, but you also
something different than what we have now?
Well, but the question is, how do you effectuate that?
No.
And clearly, what I think the president is trying to do. He's trying to move the goalpost so far over here because he thinks the only way to get them to even halfway is that. Now, I'm not saying that's the right approach. I'm just asking what you think is the right way to get there, given that whatever's happened thus far hasn't worked.
Well, first, let's talk about the anti-Semitism, then the president's approach on the student visas. On anti-Semitism, you need both parties, people condemning things like chants river to the sea, globalize the intifada, that crosses the line. You can't chant all Zionists need to die.
Everybody said it's bad, Ro, but the lip service isn't going to do it. You need to change from the ground up at some of these places. Where are these people from? And how did it happen? Where did they get indoctrinated like that? Does it go all the way to the professors they've been hiring for the past 50 years? Where's it from? It's insane.
Well, look, I think Alan Garber at Harvard University, he's put out a whole report of things that need to be done better, that he said Jewish students feel unsafe in certain places. They were harassed. Harvard needs to reform. Now, they were doing that report before Donald Trump did anything to threaten the funding, and it would be better if Harvard just reformed themselves. You don't want big government telling universities in this country what to do.
Oh, my God. Now you like Elon Musk and you don't like big government. Who are you?
Come on. Do you really want government telling private institutions?
No, but Ro, you do want these universities reforming themselves and actually doing something. I mean, they would say one thing and then they would allow all the students who they didn't
give them their diploma, give them a $65,000 grant. The same guy?
Look, I'm not going to defend the way the universities operated. I liked my alma mater, University of Chicago. They said very clearly non-disruptive protest is not allowed. You can't go in buildings and just prevent students from going there. Disruptive, yeah. I mean, disruptive protests. But, you know, the social media thing, I mean, now Rubio is saying we're going to vet everyone's social media. I got into an argument with Vice President Vance where he said that there was a kid, 25 years old, he said normalize Indian hate on social media. I said have him apologize. The Vice President says, oh, we don't want to look at people's social media. They just make jokes. Now they want to censor everyone's social media, and then they're lecturing the foreign countries about free speech. I mean, Rubio saying don't take away the speech for Americans, but we're going to take away
censor them. They just don't. If there's clearly almost activist from the river to the sea, if you see that on someone's social media site, maybe they shouldn't come here. They don't want to censor it. They can do it all they want, but they're not coming into this country, and they're not going to go to Harvard. And I'm not saying that we want to look at everything single student, but it's not censored. That's what your party wanted to do. And they did do it. They wanted a ministry of disinformation, a ministry of truth. And they went to Mark Zuckerberg and said, look, don't print this about the Wuhan lab. They already did that. Okay. That's not what they're asking now. They're just not going to let these people in if they see it.
I've stood up for free speech. I criticized
you did. I saw even the
Twitter
Facebook
on the Hunter Biden stuff. I said you can't censor the New York Post. So I'm not going to defend.
Yeah, better late than never.
I did it. My private email leaked when I had said that. But the point is that, look, if you want to have some strict guidelines that you don't want hate speech against Jewish Americans, and that's a criteria, that's fine. But they're saying we're going to look at the social media feed of every student.
Should that person get here if you did see absolutely inflammatory activist speech on a Twitter account or social media website? Do we want that person at Harvard?
If there was hate speech that was clearly anti-Semitic,
you don't want that, right?
No, fine. I think that's a fair criteria. But I don't think that what we want is people looking at, have you ever criticized Donald Trump? Have you ever said anything critical of Benjamin Netanyahu?
Right.
Have you ever said anything critical of governments? And what they've done
and who should be making that decision? Is that the State Department about letting you in to begin with, or is this supposed to be that the universities on their own are supposed to make these decisions? I think that's actually a big thing that's not discussed.
Well, look, ultimately, obviously, the State Department has the final say.
Right.
They get to control the borders. But I think there has traditionally been a deference to schools to be able to do this. And I would hope that they have a very light touch when and real evidence that someone is actually going to be a threat to Jewish students or Muslim students or anyone here. What Rubio has said, one is they put a ban. I mean, think about this. They're banning all foreign students from coming to Harvard. Second, they've put a pause on any foreign student coming to the United States until they have a social media vetting. And what's the consequence? Folks are now going to Singapore. They're going to Finland. This is what made this country, that people would come from all different backgrounds. They'd contribute here. They'd build companies here. They'd create jobs here. And it used to be your party. Ask Rand Paul how he feels about this when you have him up next. I mean, I think he would tell you he doesn't recognize this Republican Party with blanket tariffs, with the interference on universities.
What do you think happens with the bill that the House has already passed? Now the Senate is considering this. There's a deadline that the administration is hoping for of July 4th for this. Do you think that's possible to get to that point?
I think it's going to be hard, but they're just going to add to the deficit. Look, the bill adds $3.8 trillion to the deficit over the next 20 years. We have a $36 trillion debt. It takes it to about 56-some trillion.
Republicans will argue. I know you can name 15 different places that say this. Republicans will argue and say it doesn't consider the growth. What do you say back to that?
I mean, that's always the argument a politician makes. I mean, you want next time a Democratic politician to say, OK, we're going to spend on everything and have 5% economic growth? I mean,
no, they don't even do that. They just spend and they don't even care. They don't even care whether there's growth. Everything they're passing is anti-growth.
Joe, you got to have concerns about the
2017, did those tax cuts, you don't think they worked?
I think they added to the deficit.
Okay.
I think they added.
Not to the extent that it was said that they were going to do. And there's certain things, you know, Republicans think if you added the deficit, you should at least be cutting taxes for pro-growth policies. Democrats just, I don't know what they think when they add to the deficit. I guess they think that the government knows what to spend money on better than the private sector. That's all I can figure out.
Well, no, they think that we should be taxing people in my district more not to be having this kind of deficit financing. And the reality is that this
taxing just the people in your, sorry to interrupt, but taxing just the people in your district is not, you know, you'd have to broaden the base.
Sure.
If you want to do it with revenue, you're going to have to tax the middle class.
No, I think you could tax people over $500,000 more and raise
not enough money. You're going to run out of rich people.
And you stop some of the tax cuts that they're adding to the tax cuts.
No,
and then you look at some of the defense spending. I mean, they're adding $150 billion to defense. Elon was supposed to cut defense. Look, Elon came in there and he said he was going to cut $2 trillion. Then it went down to $1 trillion. Now it's $81 billion. He didn't touch anything in defense.